Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive into history. For anyone who loves royal history, this one is for you. We're diving headfirst into the life and times of Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great.
Yeah, we're using this excerpt we found focusing on Alexander the Great's reign, and it's pretty clear this guy wasn't just some king. He redefined what it meant to be a ruler.
Right.
I mean, conquer most of the known world in just 11 years. That's basically Alexander's resume summed up.
Yeah.
That's incredible. But the question is, was he just like a military genius, or was there something more to this Macedonian monarch?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it?
That's what we're here to uncover, so let's get started.
Let's do it.
So I think it's important to remember that Alexander, he didn't just appear out of thin air ready to conquer the world.
Definitely not.
He had to, claw his way to the top.
Yeah.
But he did have some pretty significant advantages from the get-go, right?
I mean, you can't downplay the importance of his upbringing and background. His father, King Philip II of Macedon, he was a pretty amazing military leader himself.
Oh, yeah. He was a force to be reckoned with, for sure.
Yeah, and he saw that potential in Alexander early on, so he made sure Alexander got the best possible training in warfare and strategy.
It's I don't know, the royal version of going to an Ivy League school for conquering.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Talk about a privileged education. I'm sure those lessons paid off pretty quickly for Alexander.
They definitely did.
So were there any early signs that Alexander was, destined for greatness?
Well, I think the Battle of Chaeronea when he was only 18, that offers a pretty good glimpse into his future.
18?
Yeah, he led this incredibly decisive cavalry charge that just completely shattered the allied Greek forces.
Wow.
It was a victory that really showcased his tactical brilliance and cemented Macedonian control over Greece.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a lucky win, it was like a strategic masterclass.
I mean, 18 years old and already changing the political landscape of Greece.
Pretty impressive.
That's incredible. But conquering Greece, that was just a stepping stone for Alexander, wasn't it?
It was just the beginning. His ambitions stretched way beyond the borders of Macedon.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
So after his father was assassinated, Alexander inherited the throne and immediately set his sights on a much bigger prize. Right, the Persian Empire.
The vast and wealthy Persian Empire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this campaign wasn't just going to test his skills on the battlefield. It was going to shape his image as a leader.
It really defined how the world saw him, and, he was both revered and feared.
Absolutely. And from what I've read about Alexander, he wasn't just a brilliant military strategist. He was also incredibly savvy when it came to controlling the narrative around his conquest.
Absolutely.
So tell us a bit about how he used propaganda during his campaign against the Persians.
Well, this is where things get really interesting. Alexander was a master of shaping public perception to benefit him.
It sounds like a politician.
A little bit, right? But, take, for example, the death of Darius III.
The last Persian king?
The last Persian king, right? The official story, the one that Alexander and his supporters spread, was that Darius, on his deathbed, named Alexander as his heir.
Really?
It was a genius move to legitimize his claim to the Persian throne.
It's like a little bit of historical spin doctoring, right?
Maybe just a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was incredibly effective.
So it sounds like he was a skilled political strategist as well as a military one.
Oh, absolutely.
Did this whole manufactured narrative actually work in his favor?
It did. It absolutely did. Alexander strategically used this whole story of him being the chosen successor to Darius to prevent potential uprisings and to portray himself as more of a liberator than a conqueror.
It's amazing how powerful a well-crafted story can be when you're talking about consolidating power.
It really is.
However, the sources we're looking at also describe some pretty brutal events during Alexander's Persian campaign.
Right.
Like the destruction of Persepolis.
Yes, the sacking of Persepolis, the ceremonial heart of the Persian Empire, that was a calculated show of force. While Alexander could be merciful and, generous when he wanted to be, he also understood how important it was to demonstrate his dominance.
Yeah.
And destroying Persepolis served as a very clear warning to anyone who might even think about resisting his rule.
A chilling reminder that even the most polished rulers are often willing to use force to achieve their goals.
Absolutely.
It seems like conquering Persia had a pretty profound impact on Alexander himself, wouldn't you say?
I think conquering an empire is one thing, ruling it is a whole other challenge.
Okay.
And after his victory over Persia, we start to see a noticeable shift in Alexander's behavior.
Really? In what way?
He started adopting Persian customs, their style of dress, and even went so far as to expect his Macedonian comrades to perform proskynesis.
Proskynesis, what's that?
It's a Persian custom of prostrating oneself before the king,
Oh, wow.
which, was totally normal in Persian court,
Right.
but it really unsettled his Macedonian followers.
Yes, I can imagine.
They were used to a much more egalitarian relationship with their king. This wasn't their style at all.
It's fascinating how these cultural differences clash, even within a seemingly unified empire.
Exactly.
Imagine these hardened Macedonian warriors who were used to fighting alongside their king as equals, now being asked to bow down before him.
It definitely created some tension.
It must have felt like a betrayal of their own traditions.
It did, and this cultural tension, it just simmered beneath the surface and eventually led to some explosive confrontations.
Like the incident with Cleitus, right?
Yes, exactly. Cleitus was a close friend and advisor to Alexander. He had even saved Alexander's life in battle.
Wow.
And he dared to publicly criticize Alexander's adoption of Persian customs.
He spoke truth to power.
He did, and he also criticized Alexander's increasingly autocratic behavior. In a fit of drunken rage, Alexander killed Cleitus.
That's intense.
It was a decision that he would later regret deeply, but in that moment,
Yeah.
the damage was done.
It's a stark reminder of how volatile power can be and the dangers of unchecked anger, even for someone as brilliant as Alexander. And then there were the purges, which paint an even darker picture of his reign.
As Alexander's power grew, so did his paranoia.
It's almost like a classic tale, right? The more power you have, the more you fear losing it.
Exactly. He became increasingly suspicious of everyone around him, even his most trusted advisors.
It sounds like a really lonely and paranoid existence.
It must have been.
So these suspicions led to a series of purges within his ranks.
Yeah, he was eliminating anyone he perceived as a threat.
So who are some of the most notable victims of his paranoia?
One of the most famous was Flawed, the son of Parmenion, who was Alexander's most trusted general.
Wow, so he went after his own inner circle.
He did. Flawed was accused of plotting against Alexander and was executed along with his father.
That's brutal.
It was. The evidence against Flawed was pretty flimsy.
So it really does seem like paranoia.
Yeah, it's likely Alexander just saw him as a potential rival and eliminated him to solidify his own power.
It sounds like it was a pretty dangerous time to be part of Alexander's inner circle.
It definitely wasn't a position for the faint of heart.
But even with all this internal strife, Alexander's ambition just wouldn't quit.
It wouldn't.
He wasn't content with ruling Persia. He wanted more.
He always wanted more. Alexander's ambition seemed boundless. He turned his attention eastward toward India with all its riches and mysteries.
And that's what's so interesting about this period of his life.
Yeah.
It reveals the limits of even Alexander's seemingly limitless ambition.
That's right.
So tell me more about that.
So after a series of very hard-fought victories in India, Alexander's army, they found themselves at the banks of the Ganges River. He was ready to keep going to conquer all of India.
Wow.
But his troops were at their absolute limit. Years of constant campaigning, the difficult terrain, the fierce resistance they had encountered had taken its toll.
Makes sense.
The army was exhausted and homesick, and they just couldn't face the idea of more conquests.
So even Alexander, this seemingly unstoppable force of nature, he had to confront the reality of his army's exhaustion.
He did. It was a pivotal moment for him. For the first time, Alexander was forced to acknowledge that there were limits to what even he could achieve. He couldn't conquer the world if his own army refused to march with him.
It's a really powerful image. Alexander the Great standing at the edge of what seemed like limitless conquest, forced to turn back by the silent but unwavering resistance of his own men.
It really is.
Makes you wonder, what if he had pushed them further? Would they have followed?
That's a question that historians still debate to this day.
Right.
But the fact that he ultimately listened to his army's exhaustion,
Yeah.
it speaks volumes about his understanding of the balance between ambition and the human cost of conquest. I think it's a powerful reminder that even the most ambitious leaders need to understand the limits of their power and the importance of taking care of their people.
Right. It's amazing how this seemingly invincible figure who had conquered so much was ultimately stopped by the human limitations of his own army.
Yeah.
But even though his Indian campaign was cut short, there's no denying the sheer scale of Alexander's accomplishments. He built an empire unlike anything the world had ever seen, spanning 3 continents.
It's truly remarkable how much he achieved in just a little over a decade. He completely reshaped the ancient world, both geographically and politically, leaving a mark that's still felt today. His legacy isn't just about the vast territories he conquered, but the innovative ways he managed them and integrated them into one massive empire.
It's true. And some might say that his success was mostly due to his aggressive tactics on the battlefield,
Right.
like his signature move leading the companion cavalry charge right at the enemy's heart.
Oh, yeah.
But I have a feeling there was more to his military genius than just brute force.
You're absolutely right. While Alexander was undoubtedly a brave and skilled warrior, his true brilliance was in his strategic mind, his ability to adapt to different enemies and terrains, and his deep understanding of things like logistics, discipline, and morale. He knew that true victory wasn't just about winning battles, it was about winning the hearts and minds of the people he conquered.
The sources we've been looking at, they mention this ancient Chinese military treatise called The Art of War by Sun Tzu.
Oh, yes.
I'm curious, could we use Sun Tzu's 5 virtues of a general to analyze Alexander's leadership?
Absolutely. That's a great idea. Sun Tzu highlights 5 virtues: courage, wisdom, benevolence, trustworthiness, and strictness as the essential qualities of a successful general. So let's see how Alexander measures up against these virtues.
Well, let's do it.
Well, first off, his courage, that's undeniable. He consistently led from the front, inspiring his troops by example. Just think about the Battle of Gaugamela, where he fearlessly led that cavalry charge right through the heart of the Persian army, breaking their lines and ultimately securing a decisive victory.
It sounds chaotic.
It was.
That definitely showcases his courage and strategic thinking. So what about wisdom? Did Alexander possess that virtue as well?
Absolutely. His wisdom was evident in his strategic planning and his uncanny ability to outmaneuver his opponents. For example, at Gaugamela, he spread rumors of a night attack to keep the Persians on edge and exhaust them. Classic Sun Tzu.
Oh, that's clever.
It was a psychological game as much as a physical one, and we can't forget about the Second Battle of Audacious, where he quickly spotted a weakness in the enemy's formation and exploited it to win a swift victory. These are just a couple of examples that show his tactical brilliance and his ability to anticipate his opponent's moves.
So courage and wisdom, definitely check those off the list. What about benevolence and trustworthiness? Those seem a little bit more complicated, especially when we consider some of his later actions.
You're right, those virtues are a bit more nuanced. In his early campaigns, Alexander was known for being generous with his soldiers and keeping his promises, which earned him their loyalty and motivated them to fight for him. He clearly understood the importance of building trust and inspiring those under his command.
However, as his power grew and he faced those internal challenges, it seems like those qualities might have wavered a bit.
Yeah.
Like the purges and executions we talked about earlier, they cast a bit of a shadow on his reputation for benevolence and trustworthiness.
It's true. It seems that the immense pressure of leadership and the constant fear of betrayal took their toll.
Right, it makes sense. But let's not forget that Sun Tzu also emphasizes strictness as a crucial virtue for a general. How would you assess Alexander in that regard?
Oh, well, Alexander was, without a doubt, a strict commander. He demanded complete obedience from his troops. And there's no question that this strictness was a key factor in his army's remarkable discipline and effectiveness.
Yeah, think about their ability to withstand those relentless assaults, maintain their formation under intense pressure, and execute those complex maneuvers, like neutralizing the Persian scythe chariots at Gaugamela.
Exactly. Those achievements say a lot about their training and their discipline.
So when we analyze Alexander's leadership through the lens of Sun Tzu's 5 virtues, we see a really complex and multifaceted individual.
Definitely. He wasn't just a reckless warrior or a tyrant, but a highly skilled and adaptable general who had many of the qualities that Sun Tzu considered crucial for success in warfare. His story reminds us that leadership isn't about perfectly embodying just one virtue, but about finding the balance between them navigating the challenges of power, ambition, and just being human.
Right. And it's fascinating to see how these ancient philosophies can still offer valuable insights into the challenges of leadership, even centuries later.
It's timeless wisdom.
However, despite all of his achievements and his undeniable military genius, Alexander's empire didn't last very long. He died suddenly in Babylon at the young age of 32, under mysterious circumstances.
It's true. His death is one of history's biggest unsolved mysteries, surrounded by speculation and intrigue. It's almost like his life, which was so full of drama and twists and turns, had to end with an equally dramatic and unresolved finale.
It does. The sources we're using mention a bunch of different theories ranging from natural causes like malaria or typhoid to the possibility of poisoning.
Yeah, there are a lot of possibilities.
There's even that intriguing theory from that BBC documentary suggesting he might have been poisoned with veratrum.
Oh, right, a plant known for its toxicity.
Yeah, and the symptoms it causes a slow and agonizing death. They seem to match up with the accounts of Alexander's final days.
It's a compelling theory, for sure. And the mystery surrounding his death only makes Alexander's story even more captivating.
Absolutely. But no matter the cause, His sudden death created a huge power vacuum, leaving his vast empire up for grabs.
It did.
And that's where the drama really kicks into high gear. Without a clear heir, Alexander's generals, the Diadochi meaning successors, they saw their chance to claim their piece of the empire.
Imagine these powerful figures who were once united under Alexander's command turning against each other, each believing they had the right to rule.
Right.
It really highlights the inherent instability of empires built on personal charisma and military strength. Without a clear and established system of succession, these empires are often prone to infighting and fragmentation after the death of the founding ruler.
It's a recurring theme throughout history, isn't it? One powerful leader unites a vast territory only to have it crumble and divide when they die.
It is.
It speaks to the enduring challenges of maintaining power and creating a lasting legacy.
It really does. So who were the main players in this high-stakes power struggle? Which of the Diadochi emerged as the most formidable contenders for Alexander's legacy?
Yeah, who should we be paying attention to?
Well, there were several prominent figures, but the three most powerful contenders were Ptolemy Seleucus and Antigonus Ptolemy, who started as the governor of Egypt. He managed to secure control of that very wealthy and strategically important region and established the Ptolemaic dynasty, which would go on to rule Egypt for centuries.
And he's also famous for hijacking Alexander's funeral procession, diverting the body to Egypt.
Oh, yes.
Talk about a power move.
It was a bold and calculated move that shows Ptolemy's understanding of symbolism and how to wield power. Possessing Alexander's remains was a very effective way to legitimize his claim and link himself to Alexander's legacy.
Very smart. But he wasn't the only one vying for control. What about Seleucus? What role did he play in all of this?
Seleucus, who initially served as an officer under Perdiccas, another prominent Diadochi, rose to become a major force in the eastern part of the empire. He founded the Seleucid Empire, which controlled huge territories in Asia, basically much of what was once the Persian Empire.
And then there's Antigonus, often called Antigonus the One-Eyed because of a battle injury.
That's right. Antigonus was a formidable general who controlled much of Greece and Anatolia. He actually came the closest to reuniting Alexander's empire, but ultimately fell short.
It sounds like a wild ride, from comrades in arms to bitter rivals fighting for control of the largest empire the world had ever seen. It's a classic story.
It really is.
But what was the final outcome of these decades-long wars of the successors? Did anyone manage to put Alexander's fragmented empire back together?
Unfortunately, no. Instead of a single unified empire, Alexander's legacy was split into four main kingdoms: the Antigonid kingdom in Greece, the Ptolemaic kingdom in Egypt, the Seleucid Empire in Asia, and the smaller Attalid dynasty in Anatolia.
It's almost poetic in a way. This cycle of unification and fragmentation that keeps repeating itself throughout history.
It is.
One powerful leader unites vast territories, only for it to crumble and divide when they die. It really highlights the ongoing challenges of maintaining power and building a legacy that lasts.
That's a great point. And while Alexander's empire might not have lasted very long, his conquests had a profound and enduring impact on the course of history, especially when it comes to the spread of Greek culture and ideas throughout the Mediterranean and beyond.
Yes, the Hellenistic period.
Exactly. It's a truly fascinating era of cultural fusion and intellectual growth. We should definitely spend some time exploring that.
Absolutely. Let's delve into how Alexander's conquest paved the way for the spread of Greek civilization, and how this legacy continued to influence Western thought and culture for centuries to come. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground with Alexander the Great.
Well, yeah.
His conquests, his leadership, even his flaws, and of course that whole mess after his death.
It was
But something really incredible emerged from the ruins of his empire. The Hellenistic period.
the Hellenistic period.
It's like history took this unexpected turn and blended East and West in a way no one could have predicted.
It's really fascinating how Alexander's ambition, inadvertently created this huge cultural fusion.
Right.
Think of it like a massive ripple effect,
Okay.
where Greek ideas, their language, art, architecture, philosophy, it all spread like wildfire across those lands that he conquered.
I like that. A ripple effect. So we're talking about those dandelion seeds again.
Yeah.
But this time they're not just carrying little plant seeds, they're carrying the essence of an entire civilization.
Exactly. And just like those seeds, Greek culture found fertile ground at all sorts of places. Egypt, Persia, even parts of India.
It wasn't just a one-way street though, was it?
No, not at all. Local traditions mixed with those Greek elements, and they created these brand new hybrid cultures. It's really remarkable when you think about it.
So Alexander, he sets out to conquer lands and accidentally becomes this cultural ambassador.
That's one way to look at it.
He sparked this incredible cultural exchange without even meaning to.
He did. And this cross-pollination of cultures led to some really significant developments.
Like what?
Well, take the city of Alexandria in Egypt. It became this renowned hub of knowledge and learning, home to the legendary Library of Alexandria.
Oh yeah, the Library of Alexandria.
Imagine scholars from all over the Hellenistic world gathering in this one place, sharing their knowledge, pushing the boundaries of science, philosophy, and the arts.
It's amazing how a leader's actions can have these unintended and far-reaching consequences.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It does. What if Alexander's empire had actually stayed together?
Mm.
Would the Hellenistic period have been even more vibrant?
That's a question that historians still debate.
I bet.
Could a unified Hellenistic empire have held off the rise of Rome? Would it have fostered even more incredible advances in culture and science?
It's a fascinating thought experiment.
It really is, but ultimately we can only speculate.
Right. So even though Alexander's empire eventually crumbled, its impact on history is undeniable. His conquests set off this chain reaction of cultural exchange that shaped the ancient world and continues to influence Western thought and culture even today.
There's no question about that. Alexander the Great's story isn't just about battles and politics. It reminds us of how interconnected history is, how the actions of one person can trigger events that change the world for generations to come.
So what can we as history enthusiasts today take away from all of this?
I think Alexander's story encourages us to think critically about the legacies of these powerful figures, to really examine their accomplishments and also the unintended consequences of what they did. It reminds us that history is never black and white. It's messy, complicated.
Yeah, there's so many threads woven together.
Exactly. It's a tapestry of ambition, conquest, cultural exchange, and the constantly evolving story of humanity.
Well said. Well, everyone, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of Alexander the Great.
It was a good one.
We've explored his conquests, his leadership, his shortcomings, and the amazing cultural legacy he left behind. It's a story that continues to fascinate and inspire. I think reminding us that even centuries later, we can still learn so much from the triumphs and the tragedies of those who came before us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this historical journey, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the fascinating world of history.